another week, back for another recap on this wonderful Monday morning, September 23rd. Strategy show, of course, sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, where you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points simply by signing up through us at Awesomeo.com, clicking on the Spotlight Hitters article under the MLB tab, and clicking that Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports link. You sign up through there, get up to $30 in those YSRPs, as good as cash to play on the site. And check out some of the monster contests that they're running each week. A bunch of no management fee contests, which means everything you pay into it comes back to you. The 400K baller, $50,000 to first with a great payout structure and a whole lot more. If you haven't signed up yet, you've got one chance. You got plenty of chances to do it, actually, but if you haven't signed up, you're missing out. It is one of the best places to play NFL right now. Go to Awesomeo.com, AWESEMO. Click on the MLB tab. I can't put the link in YouTube, unfortunately. And you'll see the Spotlight Hitters article right there at the top. The link is totally free. Click it, sign up, get your $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, and start playing today. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the NFL Strategy Show. Here we go. I'm Dave Lochran. That's Manny Laura, my man, my co-host on the SiriusXM Awesomeo radio show, Saturday and Sunday, 5 to 7 Saturday, 7 to 9 Sunday. You should definitely check us out. It's a fun show. And we commiserate with each other when things go poorly, and we celebrate with each other when things go well. Manny, how are we, bro?
We're doing great, man. Trying to survive these days. At least that's my motto, right? I think your week went way better than mine. But that's part of the process, right? You win some, you lose a lot. That's how I say it. Not you win some, you lose some. You win some, you lose a lot.
Well, I mean, last year, I know from talking to you every week, you had some rough weeks, and then you had some huge weeks, and ended up coming out on top.
Yeah, for sure. I think people just blindly see the profit and loss column in some of these charts people put out or whatever, and say, "Oh, Manny wins all the time. Manny's clearly one of the best. Manny clearly is one of this." I mean, I have my rough weeks as well too, man. It's part of the process. So it sucks when you're going through it. Really, it's not fun at all. But you live, you learn, you try to get better every week, and that's what we'll do today, man.
Yeah, no question. We are going to cover a lot over the next hour. We've got injuries that we have to touch on because there were certainly some big ones. Going to talk about some notable performances that we think will carry over into week 4, whether it's good, bad. I was going to say indifferent, but no, mostly just good or bad. Chris Carson being one of them. And then we're going to look at some of the winning lineups, what worked yesterday, what didn't work, what went wrong, what went right, and what needs to be changed, if anything, or if it was, just a really good week or just a really bad week. And all of that, hopefully we can help you along the way and make you feel better. If you lost, make you feel even better if you won, or maybe even make you feel worse if you won, if you luck boxed into a big victory. But we're going to cover all of that. Manny, let's jump in quickly to the injuries. Saquon Barkley with a high ankle sprain. That's a huge one, and it's going to carry over. He's going to miss some time, which is really unfortunate because it looks like the New York Giants have finally, retired Eli Manning and found their quarterback of the future.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you pair that with guys playing Daniel Jones yesterday, if you paired him with, I don't know, say Ingram and Saquon, that was a big blow because those two had a great game. And then you have the Saquon injury kind of derail that. If you ran it back with someone on the other side, I thought you almost for sure had a pretty decent lineup brewing. And then if you even ran even the chalky fillers after that, I think you had a monster lineup. So if you were one of the lucky, I wouldn't say lucky few, if you were one of the few that had Saquon with your Daniel Jones shares, I mean, that took a turn for the worst big time. And then obviously now he's done for a few weeks. So hopefully it's not too long, the injury, right? I've heard anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, maybe. I have no idea. High ankle sprains, you never know with them. And obviously being Saquon, you don't want to rush him back or anything. But for those that were playing yesterday and had those lineups going into the 4 p.m. games, man, what a turn for the worst.
No question, especially being how much you paid for him, right?
For sure, yeah.
There was no discounted price tag. He was the most expensive running back on Draftkings and, up there everywhere else. Do you think that Wayne Gallman now comes into play with Daniel Jones? Maybe they can actually have a somewhat competent offense. It's hard to say, because Like, here's the thing. It'd be different, in LA with the Chargers or with Dallas, where you just put any running back in and they're competent enough. I'm
Right.
not saying they turn into Ezekiel Elliott, but they're competent enough. But Gallman has Washington this week, Manny. And I don't want to jump too much into week 3, but just based on the injury, like, does this feel like a spot where we have to consider now that Saquon's definitely missing time?
Yeah, I think. Oh, well, it's going to be value for sure. Right now, um, how good can he be? I don't know. I'll say this, and it might be inflated because Saquon is that good, but the line has played pretty decent the first 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And again, I want to say it's just Saquon out there making plays, but you look at something like DVOA and you see where the Giants rank. Yeah, they're up there with the Rams, with I don't know, Tennessee, the Chargers, New England. They're up there, and they're sitting in first, depending if you took this week into account, right? And if that's the case, Wayne Gallman has to at least have some value. You'd assume he'd be extremely cheap across the industry, and then obviously if you're playing season long, head to the waiver wire. You could do a lot worse than Wayne Gallman, right? So it's not someone I'm enthused about because I don't find him to be an outstanding player by any means. But yeah, if he's extremely cheap, anywhere near min salary, maybe the 4K range, you have to at least consider him, at least look him over, right, and see what you'll do with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And tomorrow, Sal Vetri and I will break down targets, snap counts, all of that good stuff before we move into week 3. Of course, we'll take a look at salaries for week 4 as well. But T.Y. Hilton is another one, Manny. And who else was it? Julian Edelman
Julian
with the
Edelman.
rib injury. So, no Antonio Brown now. Julian Edelman's x-rays came back negative. But I'll tell you what, that could have a pretty massive effect on this offense now that Brown is gone. If Edelman misses time, I mean, my God, going up against Buffalo next week, you could see a Josh Gordon and even Philip Dorsett explosion offensively.
Yeah, we talked about it on Sirius yesterday. It's all right. No Antonio Brown, perfectly fine. They won't lose, that's for sure. But now no Julian Edelman. I still don't think they lose. But now, how much value does Philip Dorsett have, at least for the next couple of weeks, right? Until Edelman gets back, depending on how long he'll be out, right? So it doesn't even matter. I feel like he's one of those. Tom Brady is like, obviously, he's not like Mahomes, right? Where Mahomes, even with whoever it is in there, will still throw 400 yards. Like Brady won't do that, but Brady will still score touchdowns no matter what, right? Regardless of who's out there, Julian Edelman or not, right? So I think not only will they continue winning, but maybe Philip Dorsett all of a sudden has value. And do we treat Josh Gordon like a true number one now? I mean, he made an outstanding catch yesterday. For a second, I thought he was also injured, right? I think he also jammed his thumb or had something. I think his finger got caught in someone's face mask and had to sit out a few plays. I thought he would be done too. If that was the case, I'm like, oh man, that's there's major value brewing now in New England. But he ended up coming back, ended up making great plays thereafter too. So if we could treat him like a true number one, that's pretty interesting. And then obviously James White coming back, also going to be huge for this team. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I think Dorsett does have some value in the near future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Rex Burkhead, man, what a game from him with
Sure.
James White out of that offense. But I feel like I probably got, I don't want to say lucky with Barkley with having really not much of him, but I
Right.
thought it was easy to get away from him, not even because of the price, because McCaffrey and Elliott were pretty much the same, right?
Right.
But because running back Tampa stacks with Ingram and Shepard was super easy to do. And they were in just as favorable spots. And then you could get that, but still go to you could get that. You could get Ingram. You could get Shepard. If you had say Winston and Evans and unfortunately Godwin, you could bring it back with them and still have say McCaffrey, who was in an equal if not better spot than Saquon Barkley yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's tough to say because he got injured. We never saw the game, right? So it's really tough to say what he could have done.
Right.
And in his limited time, just to 8 attempts or whatever he was out there for, he did have 7.5 fantasy points. So I mean, he could have very well put up, 20 if we let him go the game. And seeing how the game played out and being such a close game and a shootout, pretty much, you never know what Saquon could have done. So if we got lucky on that injury, I mean, kudos to you. You ran good. Hopefully, we continue running good. But tough to say definitively what could have happened, who could have scored, and then I mean, it's like saying, All right, take out, and he's not a quarterback, right? But take out your best player, right? Take out Big Ben from a game and see what could happen. You never know. And Saquon is obviously the most important player to this team. So yeah, it kind of sucks the way it panned out. But I also had McCaffrey over him. I also had Dalvin Cook to an extent. I liked a little bit more if you were talking value. There were a couple guys that I liked ahead of Saquon. But if you played Saquon, it wasn't a bad play necessarily. Right. It's just you were on the wrong side of variance.
Travis Petty Cash in YouTube chat. Monster day from your boy.
Yeah, man. He almost won the millie, dude. Third in there. I think it was
second
blocked out.
Second in the $9 too.
Yeah, I think it was blocked out from first, so he couldn't really win it. But that's one heck of a performance. Anytime you get top 1,000 is great. Top 100 is elite. Top 10, I mean, that's the best week you could have possibly had, I think, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I had a profitable week. Nothing outrageous though, but the way I see it, you live to play another week, right?
Dude, I'd love it. I'd trade for your spot all day, man. Hey, you can't go broke making a profit, dude. Right?
You had a solid week one though. You know what? Let's put our boy Petty on the spot and see what we have here. One thing I love, 70% Christian McCaffrey. That was the play. I think I had 50%, but 70% McCaffrey just makes sense. And here's an interesting one. Super, super underweight on Elliott. He had one Ezekiel Elliott lineup.
Yep, same here.
Pretty incredible. Burkhead, just comparing some of my exposures here, I had about the same Eckler, less McCaffrey, but around 50, and more Elliott. I lowered my Chris Carson exposure just because I was a little bit worried. I think I got to 20 or so, but I did like him. I mean, Travis had 44%. It was one of those games where he should have been competent. He should have been effective, should have been efficient, as a matter of fact. And he breaks off that 18-yard run, fumbles. It's his third fumble in 3 weeks. I believe he lost 3 of them.
Yep, all 3.
And then you see a guy in CJ Procise who really is not a guy that is going to dominate the backfield, touches on most cases. Rashad Penny was out. I mean, when Rashad Penny was ruled out, I was like, all right, let me get a little bit more Carson than I have now because he was out. It couldn't have gone any worse for Seattle's offense, and it couldn't have gone any worse for Chris Carson. But Petty Theft still, even despite having 66 of 150 Carson lineups. By the way, this is in the slant, not the Millie Maker. I don't know if he ran the same lineups.
No, I don't think it's the same.
Okay, well, he finished second in this, so doesn't matter.
Or maybe it is. I don't know. Could be.
It might be because I'm assuming. Well, we can ask him. He'll let us know. But a lot of Kittle, a lot of Ingram, and a lot of O.J. Howard. So pretty similar here. I think he just had the balls to go with a little bit more McCaffrey. And then Winston, Wentz, Rudolph, Watson, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers. But it looks like a pretty small player pool in terms of having a big core at the top.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys yesterday were kind of in that range where you didn't want a ton, right? You didn't want a huge player pool. I think there were some clear plays you could have gone to. And if that was the case, I mean, and you picked the right players, then yeah, you had a huge week. Trav had a phenomenal week. I think not just that, Daniel Jones calling some of his top millionaire maker lineups were, I mean, insane. I thought he was, outstanding. And then the correlation didn't run into the Saquon nonsense. I mean, I think running good there too. I mean, yeah. If he got away from Carson, didn't get the Saquon injury, and then was able to play that Giants Bucks game, you made a lot of money. Whoever you are, right? Whoever had that combination made a ton of money, and those were the top 1%ers yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Big week, and it looks like they were very similar exposures at running back and at tight end. But
yeah, so the thing is because we have 250,000 entries. We don't have every single entry for the tournaments because these are so large.
Right.
We can't pull all the so we get as much as we can. To me, it's the same. I think it is the same entries. He does.
Okay. Yeah, you would know better than I would for sure.
Yeah, he does. Mm-hmm.
You're a whiz when it comes to this stuff, so I'll certainly take your word for it. But yeah, just a big day, and you're gonna have in football things can go poorly and they can go poorly quick. Like last week with a Ben Roethlisberger injury, you don't just lose Ben, but then you lose, the expected targets or at least the expected efficiency that you're hoping for to Juju and to other receivers in this offense. We see it a lot. I think yesterday there weren't a ton of high-owned players that went down. There were guys that could have really hurt you with T.Y. Hilton going out. But the thing is, he scored and he had a big game. So he went out on that injury, not a huge deal. Edelman had a big game. It was really just Barkley. But looking at the top lineups, I'm sure you've analyzed them already. I saw a few of them. Not all of them had Jones, I don't think. At least.
Nope, Jameis was the other guy. And
right.
Russell Wilson. So there were three: Winston, Jameis, and Winston, Daniel Jones, and Russell Wilson.
So compared to last week, where the guy that won the Millie and the guy that came in second, the only player they had in common, other than the Patriots, which feels unprecedented, was Derrick Henry, who only had 16 fantasy points. What about this one? This week, was there a lot more in common? Were there closer, tighter cores? Was it all Evans and Keenan Allen and the players around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you don't have a defense scoring 40, you're going to get normal weeks, right? Where everything is.
How about the Jets?
Yeah, right. I mean, the Jets. We did the optimal lineup yesterday, and the Jets were in there. We're like, didn't they lose by like 30? Yeah, they had two defensive touchdowns. Anyway, yeah. So when there's not an outlier on the slate, there's been an outlier. I almost want to say the first 2 weeks, but really just week 2 there was a huge outlier to the point where, as long as you had the Patriots, it really didn't even matter who you played. You were cashing, period. And then if you had decent players together, you were in the top 1%. This week, you needed the combination or one of Jameis or Jones because that game did shoot out. That's exactly what you want if you're game stacking, right? And then Russell Wilson just had an insane game. We talked about it yesterday. When Carson loses a fumble, they start trailing, and they're a run-heavy team. You got to rely on your quarterback, something we haven't seen before. Not only did he throw for over 400 yards with 2 touchdowns, he also ran 2 in. So by default, Russell Wilson would have been up there too for some of those top 1%ers. And yeah, it was a lot of Winston, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson. All of them had guys, even plural, that you should have been pairing with them, and all of them did well. Lockett had a monster game. Evans had a monster game. Ingram and Shepard had monster games too. So yeah, any one of those 3 stacks would have had you pretty easily in the money.
So let me ask you this: if you were looking back, who are the plays that you would say hurt you the most yesterday? Was it overstacking in terms of having too many from a certain game? Was it just having the wrong guys from that game? What do you make of it?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this yesterday too, and it was I think I love running a concentrated pool sometimes when I have a real strong grasp on the game. I think or on the slate. I think yesterday I just ran it way too tight, like to the point where I really had just exposure to 3 quarterbacks. I had 5, but like the other 2 were really just a couple lineups of them, and that's never a good thing, especially in a sport with this much randomness, right? With this much variance. Had a ton of Kyler and those guys. They didn't do anything. To me, I think the game is a little bit too fast for Kyler right now. 8 sacks is unacceptable, no matter who you are.
And he's supposed to be able to scramble.
Right. They talked about how athletic, and he'll be by far the most athletic quarterback in the league. Well, it doesn't look like it right now. I don't know. And then Carson's fumble hurt really, really bad. But I was overexposed to those guys by a wide margin, and that's all really you needed to kind of fail yesterday.
Right. Yeah, I actually had my tightest. I think I had my tightest player pool this season, but at quarterback I had basically 33% Winston. I had 20% Murray, 15% Kyle Allen, 9% Wentz, 7% Rivers, 7% Mahomes, and then a few other guys like 3% Daniel Jones and Matt Ryan and Josh Allen. But at running back, if there's one thing I look back on, and I guess I'm all right with it, but I probably should have gone just more McCaffrey, because I had 40% Eckler, 40% McCaffrey, and 40% Elliott. I'm perfectly fine getting away from like mega chalk, but it was a little bit I was a little bit concerned getting away from Elliott in the game that I thought would favor him. Look, I was wrong on this one. I thought that Amari Cooper getting shadow treatment from Xavier Howard, who shut him down each of the past 2 times they faced and is one of the best cover corners in the league. And Amari Cooper has struggled in shadow coverage his whole career. I thought it would be a really tough spot for him, but it wasn't. And while Ezekiel Elliott went for 125 yards, he didn't score. So if I could have turned that Zeke all into McCaffrey, not saying I would necessarily do that again, but I probably would have made that decision.
Yeah, it sucks with Pollard's 100-yard game too, right? Like, I mean, they both had 100-yard games. It came down to what we said yesterday. Miami's so bad they can score anyone can score on them in a multitude of ways, right? It's not like who has a good matchup against Miami is everyone does, and it's just who is the lucky person, who is the lucky beneficiary to get in the end zone. It happened to be Amari Cooper. Unfortunate because that took away from Zeke, who had his 100-yard bonus. And then when you get ahead by so much, guys like Tony Pollard start coming in, backups start coming in, and then they also get 100 yards. So it's like, well, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's literally toss up a coin. Whoever gets the lucky draw, you're the one getting a touchdown today. It just didn't fall Zeke's way.
Right. I'm with you. And sometimes having a tight core that hits can help you.
Sure.
It can help you when you have, what I mean by this is when you have guys that are just terrible right. And your core is decent. For like I had Winston and Allen, McCaffrey at the top, and then 50% Keenan Allen. So and 40% Ingram. So that was good. But Manny, I also had 38% John Brown and 33% Chris Godwin. So that kept it from being like one of, a big day. I had 17% Evans, but when you have 38 John Brown and 33 Chris Godwin, you're going to get into trouble. I squeaked out a win, but
like I say, can't go broke making a profit, friend. Like, and listen, how you take that is, listen, those little tiny, and it's not really mistakes. Again, it's just variance. Like, what are the odds in a 32-31 game? Chris Godwin has 7 fantasy points. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it just, again, it didn't fall your way. But if we keep putting ourselves in that position to have big nights, one day it is going to fall our way. And that's when we make a big chunk of money, right? So I'd say that's pretty good, man. I'd say you did very well. And, dude, heck yeah, man. Next week, do the same thing. This time, Godwin will have 27 alongside Mike Evans, and you're rolling in dough, man. That's how it works.
And you're going to win the Millie next week. I feel it. I feel it. Hey, man, I feel it. But, John Brown was a disappointment. You know what, though? That's one of those games, Cincinnati's. But this is how I look back on it. It was 38% a little rich, maybe. Well over the field on Marvin Jones, too, and that worked. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But Cincinnati's been crushed on the deep ball. Josh Allen has been targeting John Brown heavily. I look back on it, and that's a decision I think I'm okay with. So it's all about, am I all right looking back on a decision like that? Would I do it again? Would I change it? Another one that's tough, I think people are probably looking back and saying, how did this go so wrong? Zach Ertz was doubled the entire game, Manny.
The entire game. That was so frustrating. I had a lot of Wentz too, and it's funny, you take away his best target now that those guys are out, and man, when you have to pass to Mac Hollins and Arcega-Whiteside and whoever, like Aguilar the whole game, I mean, it could get pretty daunting. And then on top of that, all the drops in the world. We talked about it yesterday.
Unbelievable.
Dallas Goedert, man, you know how frustrating it is when you have a quarterback like 30%. I had him like 25 or something. I can't remember what I had him. And it was just drop after drop after drop.
Terrible.
Nelson Aguilar, no one touches you and you fumble the ball by yourself. Like, I just knew it was going to be one of those days, right? Like, you just see it unfolding and it's just like, really? This is what's going on? Oh, come on, man. I wait till Sunday and just people aren't ready to play, dude. And not enough stick 'em on your hands, dude. I don't understand.
It was bad. And, I'm pretty I am very I'm critical of Wentz when he has games that he should be better. But I don't put that on Carson Wentz yesterday.
No,
man.
you can't. You can't at all. No way.
Too many drop balls. Arcega-Whiteside dropped that at the end of the. I mean, just there's too much to talk about. But
Right.
Miles Sanders, dude, he fumbled twice on the same drive, and they went right back to him. He had the 2 longest receptions of the game. So, I mean, if you want to talk about an incredibly Jekyll and Hyde type performance, it certainly came from none other than Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I was on the fence while watching the game, right? I texted you and I'm like, man, this guy sucks, dude. Like, only because I was frustrated too, right?
Yeah.
I had Wentz. I was like, man, this is frustrating, man. I cannot do this. And they just kept going back to him, like, stop running the football. I like when Wentz is, and I get it, your receivers were dropping it too, so you really didn't know what to do, man. But when you have that many 1, 2, and 3 yard runs, it's like, come on, man, you're putting yourself in 3rd and long every down, only for your receivers to then drop passes. Like, it was frustrating to watch at times, man. But hopefully they turn it around. Listen, again, for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, you got to play. Even I know Alshon and Deshaun are out. That's fine, but you got to play a little bit better than that. Everyone, all around the game, right? The receivers, the running backs. I think Wentz was probably the only bright spot, but if no one else is playing, that doesn't even matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all. And it's just it's a tough game it's a really tough game to break down because of how many balls were dropped. Giants are expecting to be without star Saquon Barkley for the next, where are we at? Several weeks because of his high ankle sprain. Not surprising given the nature of his injury with a walking boot and crutches. So there you have it. Several weeks expected to be out. Let's take a look at some of the performances from around the league. Patrick Mahomes, once again, just completely unstoppable.
A lock.
He's unstoppable. It doesn't matter who's out there, Manny.
Yeah, no, it's a lock for 400 yards and the whole it's gonna rain, the weather in KC and yada yada. It's like we played it out yesterday on Sirius and we were like, oh no, coach, listen, the ball's too wet. I can't throw the ball. sorry, coach. What? Come on, man. Mahomes is throwing any chance he gets. It does not matter, and it doesn't even matter who's out there, quite frankly. By the way, that catch by Demarcus Robinson, unreal, dude, unbelievable. Yeah, it's a lock every week. The problem is, as he keeps getting more expensive, like, who can you fit around him? And I think that was the problem yesterday.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's a good time to talk about how coach speak can affect ownership. Referring to LaShawn McCoy, right? LaShawn McCoy, there was a bunch of, or I'm sorry, I don't know if it was coach speak, but just seeing him on the field, and seeing that, was it Darwin Thompson or was it Daryl?
Yeah, it was between Daryl Williams.
Daryl Williams getting the first rep, and LaShawn McCoy ends up being like 1 or 2% owned and having a big game. It's incredible how little instances like that can change the perception entirely from 1 minute to the next, especially when it's close to lock, and then people generally will make suboptimal decisions trying to get these guys out of their lineups.
Yeah, I have this little rule when making lineups. I started doing this like 3 years ago. It's not even new or anything, but I almost never listen to beat writers anymore, and I almost never listen to weathermen anymore. Like yesterday, I don't know. Did you see a drop of rain in that game?
Nope.
I didn't see anything.
Nope.
I didn't see a single drop of rain. I also did not see McCoy look injured at all.
Nope.
0. He scored 2 touchdowns. So the whole, he's limping onto the field and Daryl Williams is practicing with the ones pregame. Everyone's scrambling like, Daryl Williams, Darwin Thompson, what happens? Shady 2 touchdowns later is just like, all right, now we're good, fam. There was not a single drop of rain. I was like, where's the weather? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't see anything wrong with like, if anyone listened to anything that was reported yesterday, you got that game wrong for sure, 100%.
Yep. And McCall Hardman has looked good. DeMarcus Robinson has looked good. I will say this much. I'll keep going back to Sammy Watkins. It's been 2 games in a row now where he has not done what we need him to do. But again, he led the team in targets along with Kelsey with 8. And he just didn't have those big touchdowns like McCall Hardman had yesterday. He didn't score like Robinson. Sammy Watkins, when targeted 8 to 10 games, if not more, in this Chiefs offense, I promise you, you're going to get more good games than bad.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a process thing, right? Like, we can't sit here in hindsight and say, man, if I didn't play, man, if I did play, man, if I... No, man, I mean, we know what he is, right? And if we're projecting him for X amount and he's priced this much and you can fit in Mahomes while still fitting in good players around them, then you should play him. And that's the only thing. I think you continue playing Sammy Watkins. I think until this team is fully healthy, I mean, there's nothing even you change here. Even when Tyreek gets back, like, I think we might still be playing Sammy Watkins. That's how good he's looked, to be honest. He looks fantastic out there. So, yeah, nothing wrong with Sammy Watkins at all.
Yeah, speaking of dominant quarterback performances, I'm eager to get your take on the whole cheap quarterback movement that we saw in week 3. But before we do, I want to let you know that you can get 50% off, half off your first month of Awesomeo Plus membership simply by using the sign-up code NFL Strategy, all one word. Click that link above me. If you're watching after the live stream, you will see it pop up. You will be able to click it right above me, NFL Strategy, all one word, to get you 50% off your first month. That includes ownership projections, player projections, the top stack tools for baseball and for football, and with so much more that we're developing specifically for NBA season coming up. And of course, Manny, we've got the Fantasy Cruncher add-on and all of the tools that gives us the luxury of having or availability of being able to do so much with it, so much further than what you and I are just discussing on today's show.
Yeah, not just an optimizer, right? You can optimize any single type of slate. If you want to do showdown as well, we got that too. And then if you want to study the very best players, study your own play, see where you went wrong, see what top performers are doing day in and day out. You could study them as in depth as you can, right? There's no more in-depth software in the planet for DFS than Fantasy Cruncher and lineup study. So yeah, it's available to you guys at Awesomeo as an add-on, and fun partnership because you guys do the same type of content I like doing, and it's kind of just making better players, and it fits perfectly.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful union. So click that link above me. It'll show up if you're not watching live. If you are, promo code is NFL Strategy, all one word, to get you 50% off your first month. Awesomeo.com/join is where to go, and you can check out all the plans, including our Express plan, which is $395 a week. And a lot of cool stuff in that. So go check it out, awesomeo.com/join, promo code NFL Strategy. So yesterday, we saw a bevy of cheap quarterbacks come into play. And, I know a lot of people are hesitant of that, but there are certain plays where it does make sense. Now, this is not always going to work, but Kyle Allen yesterday had a monster performance, to the point where he is now likely going to keep starting. They said he'll keep starting until Cam Newton is fully healthy. That's the report, which means, look, this guy looked way better than Cam Newton, so we'll leave him out there until Cam Newton can look somewhat like he used to. But 261 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 19 of 26 passing, 144 quarterback rating for Kyle Allen. Daniel Jones, I think I saw this on Twitter, is the first rookie quarterback to throw for 2 touchdowns and rush for 2 touchdowns in a game since 1980. Maybe it was with 300 plus yards, but nevertheless, a huge game for Daniel Jones as well, Manny. It was the week of the cheap quarterbacks, and it wasn't just those guys. Jameis Winston, not exactly the min, but he also came through. What did Mason Rudolph do?
I think he was okay, right? Because of the Juju big catch.
That's what I thought. Yeah, but I guess not spectacular.
No, he wasn't like tournament winning worthy or anything. But yeah, no, just going back to the cheap quarterbacks, it works kind of like this, right? Where if you have a lot of cheap quarterbacks, and yesterday there were a ton of them, if they happen to have a good game, like say 25 plus points, you have such a big leg up on the field because now you can afford the top tier players at each position, right? Or afford an extra top tier player. Whereas if you played Mahomes, you have to find the Aguilars or you have to pair him with, I don't know, say like a Hardman or something that kind of worked yesterday, but not really, because Hardman, although he scored and had his 97 yards or whatever on two catches, it was so many guys at that position, guys like Mike Evans, guys like Sterling Shepard, guys like Keenan Allen had 30, 35, 40, that you're still way far behind some of the top performers, right? So if you play a cheap quarterback and they do happen to go off, you have such a strong advantage over the field, because then you can play those top guys. And when that's the case, you have the ability and the upside to get, say, a 250 score on any site. And when that's the case, for sure. So it's in hindsight, yeah, it's always going to be the cheap quarterbacks are better. Just hitting it is a lot tougher than we say after the fact.
It is, but when you compare it to a sport like, say, baseball, right?
Right.
A lot of times you could go with those really cheap pitchers, and then you get up to expensive bats, but those expensive bats are still likely going to see the same opportunity as the cheap bats. Now,
Correct.
They're better than them, and they're a better overall team with higher top stack probability on slates like this. You'll hear us reference that from the Awesomeo stack tool. But the difference is, in football, the more expensive you are, the more opportunities you have. Right?
For sure.
And obviously, you're more talented as well. But if you move up from let's say you moved up from, you're at Devontae Freeman, and going super cheap at quarterback gets you from Freeman to, I'll even say, oh, you know what? Okay. How about Austin Eckler? It gets you up from
or like Dalvin Cook or something.
Or even Dalvin Cook. Or, you know what? I'll even throw like a Marlon Mack in there, right?
Sure.
Or a Derrick Henry. That's fine. Go up even $1,000 or $1,500, because those guys are getting so much volume. So, while on one hand you have a guy that's decent value and everything, that's fine. But then you have someone in Henry who, you know what? Yardage totals haven't been great. The opportunities are huge, and that's why we see him put up some big games. Marlon Mack, the same case. He's averaging 21 carries a game through his first 3 weeks. That's the good thing about getting cheap at quarterback. Can it backfire? Absolutely. But it allows you to upgrade to guys that are going to see more work.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about opportunity, right? And I think in this sport and NBA, the more you pay up, the more opportunity you have. It's when you pay down that you're kind of assuming a role for someone's filling in for an injured guy. You think you have a strong grasp on what can play out, and sometimes it doesn't really work like that. We're not the coaches, right? We're not the ones out there sending guys out there, giving guys a specific amount of volume each week. So when you can save at a position, and this is why the whole save at quarterback does work. You just need to hit the quarterback, which like what's to say Kyle Allen next week is going to do the same thing? Very tough, right? I mean, still a not necessarily a rookie quarterback per se, but very inexperienced still, right? And when that's the case, I mean, you don't know what he's going to do next week. We can assume he'll do the same thing he did this week, but it wasn't even a 300-yard game for him, right? It was just efficiency and touchdowns. So next week it could still be 250 yards, but instead of 4 TDs, could be 2 TDs, and all of a sudden the cheap guy not just didn't get there. Now you're way behind guys who did pay up a little bit more at quarterback and got way better performances. So it could work both ways. Just the cheapies came out on top this week.
Yeah, they did. And like you said, it doesn't always, you don't always want to go cheap. Like you don't always want to go super cheap. Certain times you do. Daniel Jones gets Washington again. He's not minimum salary, but Kyle Allen against Houston, just taking a cursory look at this for week 4, there are definitely going to be quarterbacks where we can say, yeah, they're cheap enough to where I feel decent enough getting there. But you're not going to have the 4K guy. You're not going to have the minimum salary. But right now, there are probably 4 quarterbacks under 5,500 that are legitimately viable. And that allows you to get up to some of these expensive players. You have McCaffrey on this slate. You have Austin Eckler against the Miami Dolphins. You're going to want to pay up for a lot of these players. So I think cheap quarterback from week to week definitely it's dependent on the week. What is it about cheap quarterbacks that put them in play for you? Is there anything? Obviously, there are some obvious points that we're all looking for. but is there anything specifically? Is it the spread? Is it the total? Is it the offense that they operate in? High passing volume? What is it that makes them viable from week to week?
Yeah, for me, since I do game stack so much, it has to be a combination of a few things, right? It has to be not only them having a good projection, right? And when you're cheap, it's pretty much just point per dollar. But do you have someone, maybe two players that I can pair with you to get that upside? In Daniel Jones' case, yeah, clearly Shepard and Ingram, right? Both clearly number one at what they do. And then running it back, because I love running it back. Is there someone, very clear on the other side that you could run it back with that has the upside? In yesterday's case, yeah, Mike Evans was certainly one, and then Chris Godwin was certainly another one. Chris Godwin didn't play out, but certainly two guys that you would feel okay running it back with if there was a shootout. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Now, going forward, does Kyle Allen have two guys you can pair with that you can play with him and then run it back from the opposite team? Yeah, I think DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are pretty fine and fit the bill. And then if you want to run it back with someone, depending each week who they play, yeah, you should be able to have someone. In Daniel Jones' case, upcoming now, it's what do you do with Washington, and who on Washington would you even want, right? Like, what is Terry McLaurin a guy you're going to want to run back? Maybe, but that's pretty risky. So it's going to be interesting to see how week 4 plays out, but don't just, what have you done for me lately? Oh, Daniel Jones went ham. He's cheap. I'm going to play him in all my lineups type of thing. That's what gets you in trouble. It worked out this week because it kind of flowed together and there were obvious plays there. But if there's not obvious plays, don't try to force it in and say, well, I'll just run him naked or something. You know what I mean? Like, if there isn't enough upside or correlation, don't try to force things. That's when you start making mistakes.
For sure. By the way, Cam Newton was just officially ruled out for week 4 already.
Even if he was healthy, why play him, right?
Yeah.
Even if he was healthy. I mean, you're still sitting, dude. I don't care, man.
Especially against Washington in a game that I think they have a legitimate shot of winning. I wouldn't mind running it back with McLaurin, but I get your point in that
right.
There are spots where you're trying to force something just because of what a player did last week, and that really isn't always the way to go. And we saw this week. I think some decisions were forced, and some people get, including me in spots, too heavy on certain players that end up just being the wrong decision based on the hype surrounding them. Do you have ownership pulled up for the Millie Maker? I
don't. I think I do. Give me a second. No, not yet. Actually, not updated. No.
Okay.
Actually, no. You're right. I don't.
No. Okay. Yeah, there are a few guys, like I definitely went cheap on some wide receivers to get in the expensive backs. Like I had some Damiere Byrd, that went terribly poorly.
Went horrible, by the way.
A little bit of Devin Smith, some JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I really liked what I saw in week 2 from a snaps and a route run perspective, but that meant nothing. He
just got ownership, so yeah, I could tell you those guys if that's who you want.
Okay, well, let's do this. First, who is the highest owned player at each position?
So Zeke is the highest player owned overall.
Okay.
This is terrible. The Patriots were the second highest owned
player. Of course, chasing, man.
And then the third was Aguilar.
So Aguilar was.
So there you have every position. Running back was Zeke. The D was Patriots. A wide receiver was Aguilar, and then if you wanted tight end, it was Mark Andrews.
Oh, Mark Andrews was more popular than Ertz?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ertz was second. Andrews was 18% owned. Ertz was 16.4.
What about quarterback? Was it Dak or Winston?
Quarterback was Dak, yeah.
It was Dak. Okay.
17.6. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just looking over this, some of the guys that were the chalkiest, actually, I guess Dak was fine, but your chalkiest players in Zeke, disappointed based on what guys like McCaffrey did. Aguilar was the only one there that really paid off that price tag. I thought that Mark Andrews was hurt, meaning after the first quarter he completely disappeared. And I even asked you yesterday, like, do we know if he left the game? But he saw 7 targets. He was just pretty much non-existent. So all of those chalky guys, what gives you reason to get away from them, or what gives you reason to eat the chalk with players like that after what we saw in week 3 and week 2 and week 1?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to matchup, right? And some of these you can't say definitively they did poorly, right?
No.
Like some guys definitely did.
Right, like Zeke wasn't. I mean, he still had 125 yards. He
Right,
just
right.
didn't
Zeke was
score.
just purely variance. He just couldn't get in the end zone, right? And then even when they got out to a big lead, Pollard behind him had 100 yards rushing. So I mean, there were so many ways where Zeke could have failed. It was just a variance at that point. The Patriots, it's a defense. We won't even get into that one. Eckler, I mean, the volume was kind of there, right? He just couldn't do much with it. Had 7 targets in the passing game, had 9 rushing attempts. They were trailing, so the rushes wouldn't have been there.
They abandoned the run.
Yeah, they abandoned the run completely. I told you, Justin Jackson got a little more work, or at least I saw him on the field a little bit more than I'm used to. So I don't know. Dalvin Cook and McCaffrey had pretty good games. They were up there. Chris Carson's fumble issues continued.
Ugh.
Is that variance or not? I don't know. The
What was
Mark
his
Andrews
ownership?
injury. Yeah, the Mark Andrews injury. Hollywood Brown couldn't catch the deep balls this time around. So it just goes to show you it's from week to week, man. And it's not like you can sit here and say, all right, I'm going to take something away from this week and then fade every person in this position. No, it's sometimes you can't predict it like Zeke, right? Sometimes Hollywood won't get that much separation. And then sometimes Carson will continue fumbling the football, because if he didn't fumble, what happens, right? If Marquise Brown did catch the long ball, then what happens? And then if Zeke does score a touchdown, what happens? Like, it all could have turned in the matter of, a few plays for all of these guys. And that's all it really is. So I wouldn't say definitively just get away from chalk. Just know that variance does happen in football, and maybe account for it just a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it wasn't even just a fumble for Carson. It was the fact that fumble got brought back for a touchdown.
Yeah, even
right?
worse.
And also the fact that he had been fumbling already on the season after only losing 2 last year. He's lost 3 this year. So Pete Carroll basically had no choice but to bench him. And then the Seahawks clearly looked like they've never played from behind before and didn't know how to do so. It certainly favored Tyler Lockett. But what was Carson's ownership?
Carson was, and he was highly owned. He was 21.5.
Yeah.
He was if you don't count the Patriots, he was the 5th highest owned. 1, 2, 3,
Wow.
4, 5, 6th highest owned player. He would have gotten benched 100% if Penny was in the game, right?
No
if
question.
Penny was active, he would have been instantly benched. Pete Carroll doesn't have that patience to do that. He just didn't have a choice.
Right. I know they didn't bench him entirely, but he came out for more drives than he would have.
Oh yeah, for sure. And believe me, when Penny comes back, he is going to be the first one to have a crack at it. I mean, you can't keep fumbling. In 3 weeks, having 3 fumbles is unacceptable.
I mean, let's talk about it for a second. What does this do for Rashad Penny? Assuming he returns next week, he's facing Arizona in Arizona at 4,200 on DraftKings. Like I said, I don't want to get too far into week 4, but this is very applicable when it comes to Chris Carson's status and Rashad Penny hopefully being healthy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't have anything to lose if you are Seattle, right? I mean, actually you do. You could lose the fumbles, which is a good thing. I listen, turnovers are the worst thing you can do in football, man. And that'll get any team and any coach fired up, man. That's the worst. And when you continue fumbling, dude, I don't care if there's a rookie, a practice squad guy behind you. Like, I'm putting anyone, but I mean, if you can't hold on to the football, get out of the team. Get out of there, dude. So you have to at least give Penny a try. And if that's the case, listen, if you're a Penny owner, that's all you've been asking for. Just give him a chance, right? And give him a chance. If he takes over the reins, there you go. Rashad Penny is the back in a run-heavy offense. So it's actually very, very worth it and could potentially hold a ton of value. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a 27th overall pick. He was a first-round draft pick just 2 years ago.
Right.
So they clearly don't want to give up on this guy. And if there was ever an opportunity to carve out your role, carve out a huge chunk of this offense, well, this is it. This is the opportunity to get it done. And I think that we're just going to have to see. But if ownership is low next week because people are worried about a backfield timeshare, I'll probably have quite a bit of interest there. Manny, a couple of quick things to point out before we head out, and then I'll get your final take. Your final thoughts to wrap up week 3 and move on to week 4. Just a couple things to look at real quick for the following week, though.
Yep.
Chargers, 16.5-point favorites in Miami. Maybe the most concentrated offense in the league between Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. This should be a really interesting spot to analyze.
Yeah, so every team has gone in with like 16-point spreads, 20-point spreads, and they've all covered, man. Miami's that bad, dude. Listen, it just goes back to what we said about Dallas yesterday or this week was anyone can score because they all have good matchups, every single one of them. Now, who's to say it won't be Mike Williams? Who's to say it won't be Keenan Allen, right? Who's to say it won't even be Justin Jackson over Eckler? It could be anyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it is. They all have good matchups, and eventually they're going to be leading by 2 touchdowns, maybe 3. When that's the case, do other guys start getting more run, like we saw Tony Pollard do yesterday? He also had 100 yards rushing. That's the only thing. Does everyone have a good matchup? For sure. Should you have a piece of this game? Absolutely. Now, what piece is going to score? I can't promise you that because they all have great matchups. So it's frustrating in a way, but again, it should be a Chargers onslaught if you ask me.
Kansas City Chiefs, early look, -6.5 against the Lions in Detroit. Mahomes going to do it once again for the 4th straight week?
I mean, lock him in, man. Just pencil him in every single week. And if you can fit him without sacrificing in your DFS lineups, don't think about it twice, man. He's that good. Doesn't matter who's out there for him.
All right, best one for last. Patriots -7.5. Got an early spread here against the Bills on the road. The Bills 3-0 to start the season, Manny. 3-0. It's pretty remarkable. Can the Bills not only cover but win outright?
I think so.
I think they can too.
Listen. So it's a weird division where we always play each other really, really tight, right? And it's always Miami, Buffalo, and New York, right? And then if you look at team defenses so far, all of us, well, except Miami, have top 10 defenses this year, right? So I would not be surprised if Buffalo always does a good job playing against Tom Brady, especially in Buffalo. It's probably going to get ugly, right? Especially if Edelman's out. Yeah, I could actually see Buffalo covering and probably winning outright. So, yeah, very good question.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising to me. But I definitely like them as 7.5-point home dogs to cover.
I love that. If Edelman's out, even more. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That could make a big difference. Tom Brady will still find his guys, but, you keep eliminating one by one. It's not going to help. All right, Manny, we've gotten to the end of the road in today's recap show. Appreciate everyone for watching, as always. And if you enjoy the show, hit us with a thumbs up. You want to help support us at Awesomeo and help support our channel so we can continue to do free content like this. Thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It certainly is appreciated. What are your final thoughts on week 3, putting a bow on it? And of course, Monday Night Football tonight. We'll have our Live Before Lock show at 7:30 Eastern Time, take you up till 8:30. What are your final thoughts on the slate for week 3?
Yeah, first of all, congrats to all winners. Seems like there were a ton of them in chat, right? So congratulations to those guys. If you diversified enough and got to guys like Winston Jones, Russell Wilson, you had monster night. So congratulations to you guys. For those that didn't, and you're in my boat, keep grinding, man. Keep trying to get better always. See how you can improve. We have the tools at our disposal right here at awesomeo.com. So just continue to get better, continue to grind a little bit. And it's a game of runs, right? It's a game of runs. That's what I keep telling myself. You have your up weeks, you have your down weeks, and all you can do is worry about the future, man. So let's crush week 4, and good luck, man. What happened in week 3 already happened. Let's continue. And where can everyone check you out? Of course, on twitch.tv/mlaura. And what else do we got going on? Yeah, anywhere at fantasycruncher.com. I am Team FC now. And yeah, I do everything on twitch.tv/mlaura. I'll go live right now after this. There it is. Follow Manny on over there. And check out the goods. We appreciate you watching. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with Sal Vetri taking a first look at week 4 salaries, snap counts, for, routes run, targets, you name it, diving deep into the statistical weeds for week 3 and looking forward to week 4 on the NFL Strategy Show. We'll see you back here tomorrow.